Captain Elias Kane had traveled across galaxies, visiting planets few humans had seen. He was brave, clever, and always calm under pressure. His latest mission brought him to Zitha, a planet known for its tall, proud alien civilization called the Zalkari. Their society was strict. They valued strength, intelligence, and lineage above all else. Among them lived Princess Lyra, a young alien who was considered barren because she could not produce children according to Zalkari beliefs. Her father, King Tharok, was proud, tall, and feared throughout the galaxy. To him, Lyra's condition was a source of shame. Despite the risks, Elias had heard of Lyra's story. He saw not a weakness, but a being who needed respect and fairness. When he learned she was being treated poorly by her own people, he felt a strong urge to help. He wanted to show that courage, kindness, and intelligence could matter more than strength or bloodlines. Word of Elias's arrival quickly reached the palace. King Tharok, curious but skeptical, summoned the human to his grand hall. The hall was enormous, filled with shimmering light that reflected off walls made of crystal. Zalkari nobles watched silently. The air was tense. Tharok's eyes, sharp as a hawk's, fixed on Elias. "You dare accept my daughter?" Tharok's voice was loud and harsh. "Do you not know she is barren? Do you not fear the consequences of weakness?" Elias did not flinch. His voice was calm yet firm. "Strength is not measured by biology alone. True legacy is built by courage, loyalty, and heart." The nobles gasped. Some whispered to each other. Never had a human spoken with such confidence in front of the Zalkari king. Lyra, standing quietly behind her father, felt a small spark of hope. Perhaps this human could see value in her beyond what her society had told her. Tharok, not willing to accept this, decided to test Elias. He wanted to prove that humans were inferior. "If you wish to stand by my daughter," he said, "you must survive 3 challenges. Fail, and you will leave Zitha in disgrace." The first challenge was the Crystal Labyrinth, a dangerous maze filled with sharp crystal walls that shifted unpredictably. Many Zalkari soldiers had tried to navigate it and failed. Elias studied the labyrinth carefully. He observed the patterns of light and shadow, using his human intuition to predict how the crystals moved. Step by step he advanced, avoiding traps and dead ends. Hours passed, yet he never gave up. Finally, he reached the center, proving not just his intelligence but his determination. The second challenge was a simulated gravity storm, a test of endurance. The storm created a harsh environment, pulling and twisting anyone inside. Most aliens relied on strength alone to resist it, often tiring quickly. Elias, however, focused on technique and timing. He used his body in small, precise movements to balance against the forces. Slowly but surely, he moved through the storm, reaching the other side. His calmness and observation impressed even the harshest judges. The third challenge was a war simulation, where Elias had to plan strategies against a simulated alien army. The Zalkari assumed he would fail. After all, humans had never mastered their advanced tactics. But Elias relied on observation, logic, and creativity. He studied the simulated forces, predicted their moves, and found clever ways to turn their strengths against them. When the simulation ended, the judges were shocked. Elias had not just survived, he had excelled. Lyra watched silently throughout the trials. Her eyes widened as she saw Elias remain calm under pressure, never showing fear. She realized that humans, often underestimated, could have remarkable abilities. For the first time, she felt respect and even admiration for him. She began to imagine a world where she was not judged by weakness, but valued for her mind and heart. Despite Elias's success, King Tharok's pride would not allow him to admit defeat. He tried to humiliate Elias further, saying, "A human survives only by luck. My daughter's life is yours to guard, but know this, she will bring you shame." Elias smiled slightly. "I do not see shame in protecting someone who deserves respect. I see honor," the court murmured. Some nobles, quietly impressed, began to question their long-held beliefs about humans. Others stayed loyal to the king, unwilling to accept the possibility that a human could surpass Zalkari standards. King Tharok, growing frustrated, issued a final test. He declared that Elias and Lyra would be sent to a desolate plateau far from the palace. The plateau was filled with volatile energy storms that could disorient and harm anyone unprepared. The king expected them to fail, believing the human would be unable to handle alien conditions. As they traveled, Lyra felt a mix of fear and curiosity. She had never left the city limits before, and the wild terrain was both beautiful and dangerous. Elias walked calmly beside her, analyzing the environment and planning every step. He reassured her, saying, "We will find our way. Trust me and trust yourself." Lyra felt a flicker of courage. She had spent her life doubting herself, believing she was unworthy. But Elias's calm and confidence made her feel capable. Perhaps, she thought, there was a different path for her, one where she could be strong in ways the Zalkari never expected. By the end of their first day on the plateau, Elias had built a small shelter to protect them from the storms. Lyra observed how he used simple materials, turning danger into safety. She realized that humans, though physically weaker than Zalkari, had a unique intelligence that could overcome almost anything. As night fell, Lyra looked at the human beside her. She whispered softly, "I never thought anyone could see me as more than a problem." Elias smiled kindly. "You are not a problem. You are a person, and every person has value, even when others cannot see it." That night, Lyra lay awake thinking of what she had witnessed. The human had not just survived the trials. He had proven something bigger. He had shown that courage, intelligence, and heart could surpass strength and lineage. For the first time, she believed that perhaps her life and her future was not bound by the limits her society had imposed. The story of Elias's courage was just beginning, but already whispers were spreading through the Zalkari court. Some nobles began to wonder if the human truly was extraordinary. King Tharok, however, remained stubborn, hiding his unease behind a mask of anger. Elias and Lyra had survived the first part of the challenge, but the greater test was yet to come. The desolate plateau, the storms, and the king's next trials would push them further. And through it all, a bond was quietly forming. One that could change not only their lives, but the future of an entire plain. The plateau was harsh. Jagged rocks pierced the ground, and energy storms flashed across the sky with brilliant light. The winds howled like wild beasts, and the ground shook under the strange, pulsing energy that ran through Zithara's crust. Most Zalkari would have turned back at the first sign of danger. But Elias Kane moved steadily, his human mind assessing each risk with precision. He studied the patterns of the storms, noticing that the flashes of energy followed a rhythm. Using this, he could predict where the next surge would strike. Lyra walked beside him, her long alien limbs unsteady on the uneven terrain. She had never faced such danger before. Fear clung to her like a heavy cloak, but Elias's calm presence gave her strength. Every time she faltered, he placed a steady hand on her shoulder or offered quiet guidance. "Watch the light," he said. "Move with it, not against it. You can do this." As hours passed, the storms grew stronger. Lightning-like energy bolts struck the ground around them, creating geysers of crackling power. Elias quickly fashioned a small device from scraps he had collected, a simple shield that could absorb and redirect the energy. "Hold on to this," he instructed, handing Lyra one side of the device. "We'll move together. Trust me." Lyra hesitated for a moment, then nodded. She gripped the shield tightly. As they advanced, Elias gave her small tips, teaching her how to channel her own latent energy safely. She discovered something she had never known. Her energy, once dismissed as a weakness, could interact with his device to neutralize the storm's dangers. A spark of pride and wonder filled her chest. She realized that what her people had called a curse could actually be a strength. For the first time in her life, Lyra felt capable and alive. Her confidence grew as she learned to use her abilities. She could sense the energy in the rocks, the air, and even in Elias's calm movements. Together they moved as a single unit, anticipating dangers and reacting in perfect sync. Night fell, and the storms dimmed, leaving the plateau bathed in a soft, alien glow from the crystals embedded in the rocks. Elias built a small shelter using lightweight materials, reinforced with Lyra's energy. The shelter was safe, dry, and surprisingly comfortable considering the harsh environment. They sat together inside, exhausted but alive. Lyra finally spoke, breaking the silence. "I never thought anyone could see me as more than a burden," she admitted softly. Elias looked at her with a kind expression. "You are not a burden," he said. "You are a person. And people matter for who they are, not for what they are told they should be." Lyra's eyes softened. She felt something she had never felt before: trust. For the first time, She allowed herself to believe that someone could care for her not out of obligation, but because of who she was. Elias's courage and kindness were quiet but powerful. It made her feel seen. The next morning, the storms returned fiercer than before. Elias studied them carefully and led Lyra toward a narrow canyon that he believed would give them shelter. As they approached, they noticed movement, guards sent by King Tharok. The king wanted to ensure the human would fail and bring shame upon himself and Lyra. Elias assessed the situation quickly. He whispered to Lyra, "Stay calm. Follow my lead. We can get past them without a fight." Using the terrain and the cover of crystal formations, they moved silently. Lyra's energy shield absorbed small flashes of energy from the storm, keeping them invisible to the guard's sensors. Elias's strategy relied on precision and timing, not strength. The guards searched frantically, but Elias and Lyra moved with unmatched coordination. By the time the guards realized they had been outmaneuvered, the human and princess were safely beyond the canyon. Lyra's respect for Elias deepened. He had not only kept her safe, but had done so without unnecessary violence. She realized that true courage included wisdom, patience, and care, not just brute force. During a brief rest, Lyra shared stories of her life with Elias. She spoke of her childhood, of the expectations and pressures placed on her, and the constant reminders of her supposed weakness. Elias listened carefully, never judging, only asking questions that made her think about herself in a new way. He asked her about her dreams, her fears, and what she wished to do if no one judged her abilities. For the first time, Lyra felt her voice mattered. Elias, in turn, told her of his journeys across galaxies, of the humans he had met, and of the lessons he had learned from failure and success. He spoke of humans not as perfect beings, but as creative, determined, and resilient. Lyra began to see a larger world beyond Zitha, and understood that her life could be different. By midday, they approached a plateau cliff overlooking a vast valley. The valley's floor was dotted with crystalline forests and winding rivers of glowing liquid. Elias stopped and looked at Lyra. "Do you see it?" he asked. "All of this. It's full of potential. Danger, yes, but also opportunity. We can navigate it together." Lyra nodded, her heart racing with excitement and fear. She could feel her energy responding to the environment, giving her a sense of control she had never experienced before. Elias's belief in her allowed her to believe in herself. As they descended into the valley, the first real test of their partnership came. A sudden surge of energy erupted from the ground, forming a twisting, pulsing barrier. It was too wide and dangerous to jump, too powerful to walk through. Elias and Lyra froze for a moment. Elias quickly analyzed the pattern. "We can use your energy to stabilize a path," he said. "You focus, I guide." Lyra nodded and concentrated, feeling her power flow in ways she had never imagined. Together, they created a safe passage, a bridge of light and energy over the barrier. Step by step they crossed, relying on trust and coordination. When they reached the other side, Lyra laughed, a sound of pure relief and joy. She had never felt so alive. She looked at Elias, her eyes shining. "I never thought I could do that," she said. "You did," Elias replied, "because you trusted yourself and didn't give up." As night fell again, they camped under the glowing crystals of the valley. Lyra lay awake, thinking of what she had learned. Her life had changed in a single day. A human had shown her that courage, intelligence, and heart could overcome even the most daunting challenges. She realized that her perceived weakness could become a strength, especially when guided by wisdom and care. Elias, watching her from across the campfire, thought of the king's challenges and the journey still ahead. He knew that survival was only the first part. The greater tests of character, trust, and partnership were yet to come. But he also knew that together, he and Lyra were stronger than anyone on Zitha could imagine. The storm winds howled outside, but inside the small shelter, a quiet bond had formed. Not just of survival, but of respect, trust, and a growing friendship. A partnership that could change the course of a planet's future. And in the palace, King Tharok grew uneasy. He had sent his finest soldiers to ensure human failure, yet all reports showed only success. For the first time, the king wondered. Perhaps this human was not weak, and perhaps his daughter was more capable than he had ever imagined. The story of Elias and Lyra was far from over. The next challenges would test not just their courage, but their wisdom, their hearts, and their ability to trust each other in ways neither had ever experienced. The sun rose over Zithara's jagged mountains, casting long shadows across the valley. Captain Elias Kane and Princess Lyra had survived the harsh plateau and the violent energy storms, but their greatest challenge was yet to come. The reports from the palace were alarming. A rogue faction of the Zalkari, jealous and ambitious, had launched an attack to overthrow King Tharok. The king's guards were brave, but they were unprepared for the cunning of the rebels. King Tharok, proud and stubborn, knew he could not rely on outsiders for this fight, but he had no choice. His daughter, Lyra, and the human who had survived every trial were the only ones capable of devising a strategy the rebels would not anticipate. Elias surveyed the battlefield from a high ridge. Below, alien forces clashed with the rebels in a chaotic mix of sound, light, and energy. He noticed patterns in the enemy's movements, predictable shifts that most Zalkari could not see because they relied solely on strength. Elias spoke to Lyra, who was standing beside him. "Look at them," he said. "They follow routines. They expect the unexpected, but they don't think creatively. We can use that against them." Lyra nodded, feeling a thrill of determination. "I can help," she said. "I've learned how to control my energy better now. I can shield our allies and even disrupt their attacks." Together, they devised a plan. Lyra would focus her energy to create barriers and channels, guiding the Zalkari forces safely and destabilizing the rebels. Elias would direct troop movements using his human experience in strategy and coordination. It was a risky plan. If either failed, countless lives could be lost, but both were confident in their skills and in each other. As the battle began, Lyra unleashed a controlled wave of her energy. It formed protective shields around the Zalkari soldiers, absorbing enemy blasts and allowing them to advance. The rebels were caught off guard. They had expected brute force, not intelligence and teamwork. Elias moved among the ranks, giving quick instructions, predicting enemy moves, and directing soldiers to the most vulnerable points. His calm voice cut through the chaos, bringing focus and clarity to the troops. The Zalkari, though initially skeptical of the human, followed his lead. Slowly, the tide of battle began to turn. King Tharok watched from the palace walls, disbelief on his face. His daughter, once considered weak and barren, was now a central figure in defending their civilization. The human he had mocked, Elias Kane, was not just surviving, he was leading and inspiring the Zalkari forces to victory. As the final clash approached, Lyra took a deep breath and concentrated her energy. A surge of light radiated from her, forming a protective dome around the palace. Enemy forces tried to penetrate it, but their attacks were deflected. She moved with precision, guided by Elias's calm instructions and her own growing confidence. Every soldier inside the dome was safe, and the rebels could not find a weakness. The battle ended with the rebels retreating, defeated and confused. The Zalkari had been saved not by brute strength alone, but by strategy, courage, and the unexpected partnership between a human and a princess. Cheers erupted across the palace. Soldiers lifted their weapons in salute, and the citizens of Zitha celebrated the unlikely heroes. King Tharok, humbled and thoughtful, approached his daughter and Elias. His eyes, once filled with mockery, now reflected respect and a quiet pride. "Lyra," he said, "you have shown strength beyond what I imagined. And you, human, you have proven that courage and intelligence can surpass any expectation. You are both worthy." Lyra stepped forward, her eyes shining. "Father," she said, "strength is not just in power or lineage. It is in courage, trust, and heart. Elias saw that in me when no one else did." Elias smiled, modest but proud. "We only succeeded because we worked together. She guided me as much as I guided her." The king nodded slowly, understanding the lesson he had long ignored. He formally recognized Lyra's contributions and declared that she would be trained and prepared to rule in the future, not as a weak daughter, but as a capable heir. The court, once skeptical and judgmental, now celebrated her bravery and intelligence. The story did not end with the battle. Weeks later, a quiet, joyful announcement spread through Zitha. Lyra and Elias were expecting a child. This child symbolized hope, unity, and the blending of worlds. The princess, once considered barren, would now give life to the future heir of Zitha, bridging alien and human understanding. Citizens across the planet marveled at the story. Humans, long underestimated by many civilizations, were shown capable of remarkable achievements. Elias Kane became a hero, not just on Zitha, but across the galaxy. Lyra's courage and energy, once dismissed, were celebrated as proof of her true potential. King Tharok, once proud and rigid, learned a lasting lesson. Strength is not in perfection alone. True greatness comes from resilience, wisdom, and the willingness to trust and embrace the unexpected. He watched his daughter and the human with a sense of quiet pride, realizing that the future of Zitha was brighter than he had ever imagined. In the quiet moments after the celebrations, Lyra and Elias stood together on a hill overlooking the Crystal Valley. The energy storms had calmed, leaving the landscape bathed in a soft, glowing light. Lyra held Elias's hand and smiled. "I never imagined my life could be like this," she said. Elias looked at her, his eyes steady and warm. "Neither did I, but we made it together, and now the future is ours to shape." As the stars rose in Zitha's sky, the world seemed to whisper a promise. Humans could rise, flourish, and change the course of any civilization. And with courage, heart, and partnership, even the most unlikely heroes could leave a legacy that would last for generations. The tale of Elias Kane and Princess Lyra became a legend across Zitha and beyond, a story of trust, intelligence, bravery, and the power of seeing potential where others saw weakness. And in the quiet corners of the galaxy, other humans listened, inspired, and knew that their kind could achieve greatness in ways no one expected. The Barren princess was now a mother of the future heir, and the human who had been mocked as weak became a symbol of human resilience and ingenuity. Together, they had changed Zitha forever, proving that the heart and mind could outshine the strongest armor and the tallest soldiers. And so, a new era began, one where humans and Zalkari alike looked forward to a future built not on fear or prejudice, but on trust, courage, and the promise of unity.